Okay, let's talk about enterprise software. Because right now, things are changing and fast. The old rulebook for how companies buy, manage, and pay for their tools, it's basically being torn up and rewritten from scratch. So we're going to dig into what's really happening under the hood.
So let me just ask you this straight up, especially if you're working in IT, finance, or a leadership role. You've seen that software bill, right? It just keeps ticking up and up and up. But if you had to explain exactly why, could you?
Because if your first thought is, well, we're just buying more apps, you're probably missing the real story. The whole game has changed. The things driving cost and complexity today are, well, they're a lot more subtle and honestly a lot more powerful.
This leads us right into what I'm calling the SaaS spending paradox. We're spending more money, for sure. But the reason why is not what you'd think at all. Okay, check this out. 305. That's the average number of SaaS apps a company is trying to manage today. But here's the really surprising part. That number has totally plateaued. It's not really growing anymore. The days of just piling on more and more apps seem to be over.
But here's the paradox. Even though the number of apps is staying the same, total spending is still climbing. It's up 8% from last year. So if we aren't just buying more software, where on earth is all that cash going?
And just so we're clear, we're not talking about chump change here. The average organization is shelling out nearly $56 million a year on this stuff. That is a massive strategic line item that really needs a better explanation. So let's pull back the curtain. Let's find those hidden drivers. What are these invisible forces that are cranking up the costs and making everything so much harder to manage? Turns out, it really boils down to three big, interconnected things that are shaking up the whole landscape. You've got this massive AI explosion, a total shift in how software is priced, and this growing, often ignored, risk factor. Let's break them down one by one. Let's start with AI, and wow, spending on apps where AI is the main event, not just some bolt-on feature, has more than doubled in a single year. That's a 108% increase. This is where a huge chunk of new money is going, and its growth is just explosive. Second, the pricing shift. You see, we're moving away from that predictable pay-per-person model. Now it's all about consumption. You look at HubSpot, Zendesk, Monday.com, they'll give you a certain number of AI credits or whatever, but when you run out, you got to pay more. It makes trying to forecast your budget an absolute nightmare. And finally, there's risk, and this is a big one. Less than a quarter of all these SaaS apps get an excellent rating for security. That means 3/4 of your software portfolio is sitting there with a medium, low, or even poor rating. That's a whole lot of hidden costs just waiting in the form of potential breaches. So if you're a leader today, this is the world you're living in. You're juggling this crazy AI adoption, costs that are totally unpredictable, and some pretty significant security risks. It's a brand new, way more complex landscape to navigate, for sure. But all of this complexity and uncertainty, it actually creates a new kind of opportunity. Because in an environment this chaotic, the most valuable thing you can have isn't a fancy new feature. It's trust. And I'm not talking about trust as some vague, fluffy concept. As this quote points out, it's something you earn through real, concrete actions, having transparent policies, making sure your systems are secure, and being genuinely committed to protecting your customers' data. And you can see this shift happening. Think about privacy laws like GDPR. For years, they were seen as just a headache. But now, a huge 86% of companies actually see them as a positive thing for their business. Why? Because they provide a clear roadmap for building the trust that customers are demanding. And believe me, the stakes could not be higher. 9 out of 10 customers, 9, will straight up walk away if they don't trust you with their data. Trust isn't a nice to have anymore. It's a direct line to your revenue. Okay, so what does this all mean in the real world? Let's get practical. Let's lay out the new playbook. It really comes down to 3 main rules for actually thriving in this new era. Okay, rule number 1, it's a mindset shift. You have to start treating privacy as a value driver, not a cost center. Rule 2, you got to break down those silos. Get your IT and your finance teams on the same page. That's the whole idea behind FinOps, so you have one clear picture of what you're spending. And rule 3, privacy has to be baked in from the very beginning. Privacy by design has to be your default setting. And that first rule, it's not just wishful thinking. The data is crystal clear.
A whopping 96% of organizations that actually invest in privacy find that the benefits they get are way bigger than the costs. It's a clear net positive. And you can actually put a number on that return. The majority of companies are seeing a positive ROI, and get this, nearly a third of them report getting more than double their investment back. Now that's a return that will get any CFO to pay attention. So, all of this is leading us to the future of enterprise software, which really seems to be defined by this intersection, this meeting point between rapid innovation and fundamental responsibility. Which really brings us to the final critical question, doesn't it? In this new world of AI and data everywhere, do we have to make a trade-off? Do we have to sacrifice being responsible just to innovate quickly? Or do we have to slow down our innovation to be responsible? And the answer is a definitive no. That is a false choice. The most successful, most innovative companies of the next decade are going to be the ones that figure out how to master both. They'll prove that trust isn't a barrier to progress. It's the fuel for it. It's what makes all that growth possible in the long run.